Gimel Yud Beis. The Yishmael says, "Be swift for a superior, and reserved toward the young, and be cheerful toward everyone." Rabbi Akiva says, "Jest and levity accustom man to immorality. The oral tradition is offense for the Torah, and tithes are offense for wealth. Vows are offense for abstinence, and offense for wisdom is silence." He used to say, "Beloved is man, for he was created in the image of God. The greater love is that it was made known to him that he was created in the image of God, as it is stated, for in the image of God he made man." Beloved is Israel, for they are called children of the omnipresent. And the greater love is that it was made known to them that they are called children of the omnipresent, as it is stated, "You are children to Hashem, your God." Beloved is Israel, for a desirable utensil was given to them, and a greater love is that it was made known to them that a desirable utensil for which the world was created was given to them, as it is stated, "I have given you a good teaching, do not forsake my Torah."
Hey. Okay, Hakol Tzafoy, Harshus Nasuna, the age-old question. Oh, by the way, why don't you turn on your camera so I can see you when I'm talking?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
It used to come on all the time.
Hakol Tzafoy, Harshus Nasuna, that the everyone has free will, and yet Hashem will, and even though Hashem has foreknowledge of everything, and that's an old paradox which I solved using science fiction, but as one proposal, I can't say that, I can't say with any sort of certainty that my science fiction model, the multiple universes model is the solution, but it is a solution, the possibility of how to reconcile our free will with Hashem's foreknowledge. Ubetov ha'olam nidon, and the world is judged favorably. In other words, that Hashem judges us with rachamim and not with din. So when a person does an avera, they don't go, you're zapped with lightning. That would be din. Din would be you do a sin, you get struck by a bolt of lightning or whatever, you just drop dead. But kol lefi rov hamaaseh, and everything is according to the majority of deeds. And Rambam explains that mispar hamasim lo godel hamasim, the number of deeds rather than the greatness of the deed. So, for example, if somebody has 1,000 shekels to give away, and he's got to choose between giving it out in, like, taking it to Shachris in the morning and giving it out to the guys who are coming and asking and giving them a shekel at a time, or just taking 1,000 shekels and giving it to Lamanachai. I mean, assuming that the recipients are equally worthy, let's just say, right? It is better to give out 1,000 times one than one shot of 1,000, because every time you give tzedakah to somebody, you're doing something to yourself. Motion of giving it gives you that habit of being generous, which you don't get if you just give everything in a one-off shot. Okay. Hakol nasun be'eravon. Everything is given as a pledge. Right? Whatever you have in your life, Hashem gave you on as a deposit. It's not yours. It's you're looking after it. And there's a net spread over all of life, which is, don't think that you can escape with your pledge and they won't ask for it back. The store is open. Okay, you can get anything that you want from this life. And the storekeeper is very easy about giving credit. Yeah, sure, no problem. Take, no problem. Take. However, he keeps a record of everything that you do. And he's writing. Yeah, okay, so let anyone who wants to borrow come and borrow. But Hashem's collectors are going around all the time. Yeah, right. And if he doesn't consciously repay, then they'll exact payment whether you're aware of it or not aware of it. So better to be aware of it and give
Right.
and give back what you need to give back. Okay, v'yesh lahem al mashis mochu. They have what to rely on. But din emes, and the judgment is a completely true judgment. V'akol mesukan l'soda, and everything is prepared for the grand soda at the end. When we receive our judgment, and hopefully it'll be favorable, and we sit at the feast of Mashiach, at the feast of the Leviathan, whatever feast it is at the end. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Right, so Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, we know of him because he was the one who was installed as the not the Ab Beis as the Nasi. He was installed as the Nasi when he was very young, and we saw him in the Pesach Seder. Ani keben shivim shana.
Yeah.
Right, almost like he was 70 years old because he aged prematurely. Anyway, he says, "Im ein Torah, ein derech eretz." If a person has no Torah, then he's not gonna. You can't expect somebody who has no Torah to have good midas. Im ein derech eretz ein Torah, and similarly, if somebody doesn't have basic midas, he's not going to be able to hold Torah. It's okay. If a person has no wisdom, he cannot properly be fearful of sin. We saw that in a previous Mishna earlier. Okay, that Torah has to be a basis for his fear of Hashem. And if he has no fear of Hashem, he cannot acquire chokmah either. The two have to go hand in hand. Im ein bina ein das. Now, what's bina is the ability to maybe that's your deductive reasoning. Okay, and das is your understanding of how things fit together. So one is there are two different types of reasoning, and if he doesn't have so let me just see how Kati describes das again. So reasons for things. So if you can, so das is understanding why things happen. So if you see I don't know an interesting natural phenomenon like tides, you can look at tides and say, okay, we can understand why tides happen if we look at all the facts, and that's a das thing. And Bina is the extension of Bina is the extension of understanding one thing from something else. Okay, so it is deductive reasoning. Okay, so deductive. If you don't have one, you cannot have the other, because it shows that if he has no das, if he has no wisdom to understand reasons for things, then he's not going to be able to have deductive reasoning either. The two need to come together. Im ein kemach in Torah. If a person has no parnasa, he's not going to be able to focus on his learning. Im ein Torah in kemach. But if a person has no Torah, he also then all of what he is earning, his kemach is worthless is basically worthless. He said anyone whose wisdom is more than his deeds. We saw also somebody previously said your wisdom has to be something that serves your deeds, and that the primary thing is actually the deeds. What's the analogy? It's like a tree with lots of branches and very few roots. And comes the first wind and uproots it and turns it on its head. So it quotes from Yirmiyah. I'll just give you the full quote over here. Aror hagever ashev tach ba'adam. Cursed is the man who trusts in man. The sam basar zero, and he makes flesh is his strength. Umin Hashem Yasur Libo, and he takes his heart away from Hashem. And he'll be like a lone tree exposed in the desert, and he won't see when good comes. Even during the rain, he doesn't feel a good any benefit. In a place of desolation and from the heat of the sun. Eretz Melecha, salty earth that doesn't push up land. V'lo teshev, and it will have no yeshuv. Aval kol shemasav merubin mechokmaso, but somebody has more deeds. His deeds exceed his wisdom. What is he compared to? La'ilan she'anafav muatin v'shorashav merubin. He's got few branches but lots of roots. No matter how much it blows, the tree will not budge. So this is the person who's got lots of good deeds, and he is rooted in Yiras Shamayim, right? As it says in again, that's the continuation of those psukim from Yirmiyah. Baruch HaGever Barabada. Asher Yiftach B'Hashem Berabada, V'haya Hashem Miftacho, V'haya Ka'etz Shatul Al Maim Al Yuval. So he's like a tree has been planted by water, by a stream, and Yishalach Shorashav, and it'll send forth his roots, and will not fear when the heat comes. V'haya Alehu Ranan, and its leaves will be plentiful and refreshing, I guess. And in a time of in a time of drought, it will not worry, because the river that comes past it will still nourish it. And it will not stop making fruit. Okay.
Good.
All right, let's go. Let's see how much we can do before I need to run off to Shachris.
We have a baseline. Okay. He used to say, get out of here, please. Thank you. He used to say, the more flesh, the more worms, the more possessions, the more worry, the more wives, the more witchcraft, the more maidservants, the more lewdness, the more men servants, the more thievery. However, the Torah, the more life. The more students, the more wisdom, the more counsel, the more understanding, the more charity, the more peace. One who has gained a good reputation has gained it for his own benefit. One who has gained himself Torah knowledge has gained himself the life of the world to come. Rabbi Zochanan ben Zakkai received the tradition from Hillel and Shammai. He used to say, if you studied much Torah, do not take credit for yourself, because that is the purpose for which you were created. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai had 5 disciples. They were Rabbi Eliezer ben Harkanos, Rabbi Yeshua ben Kaniah, Rabbi Yossi the Kohen, Rabbi Shimon ben Nathaniel, and Rabbi Elazar ben Arak. He used to enumerate their praises. Rabbi Eliezer ben Harkanos is like a cemented cistern, does not lose a drop. Rabbi Yeshua ben I can't say that. Kaniah, fortunate is she who bore him life. Rabbi Yossi the Kohen is a scrupulous, pious person, and Rabbi Shimon ben Nathaniel fears sin. And Rabbi Eliezer ben Arak is like a spring flowing stronger and stronger. He used to say, if all the sages of Israel were on one pan of a balanced scale and Eliezer ben Harkanos were on the other one, he would outweigh them all. Abba Shaul said in Rabbi Yochanan's name, if all the sages of Israel were even Rabbi Eliezer ben Harkanos among them were on one pan of a balanced scale, and Rabbi Elazar ben Arak on the other, he would outweigh them all. He said to the 5 disciples, go out and discern what is the proper path to which a man should cling. Rabbi Eliezer said, a good eye. Rabbi Yeshua said, a good friend. Rabbi Yossi said, a good neighbor. Rabbi Shimon says, one who considers the outcome of the deed. Rabbi Elazar says, a good heart. He, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, said to them, I prefer the words of Rabbi Elazar ben Arak to your words, where your words are included in his words. He said to them, go out and discern what is the evil path from which a man should distance himself. Reb Eliezer said an evil eye. Yeshua said a bad friend. Reb Yossi said a bad neighbor. Reb Shimon says one who borrows and does not repay. The one who borrows from man and is like one who borrows from the omnipresent. And it is said the wicked one borrows and does not pay, while the righteous one is gracious and gives. Reb Elazar says a wicked heart. He said to them, I prefer the words of Reb Elazar ben Arak to your words. Your words are included in his words.
Good. Okay, that's it.
That's it.
Lion Aleph.
Okay, Lion Aleph. Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Tzadok testified regarding a firstborn donkey redemption sheep that died, and the Kohen had no claim at all upon the owner. Rabbi Eliezer says the owner is responsible for the redemption sheep and as a justified sale of a son. But the comments say the owner is not responsible for the redemption sheep. Rather, it is like the redemption money of Maisa Sheni. Rabbi Tzadok testified concerning the bride of non-kosher grasshoppers that it is tahor, because the earlier Mishnah had stated non-kosher grasshoppers that were pickled together with kosher grasshoppers do not render their brine forbidden. Rabbi Tzadok testified concerning where the flowing waters were greater than the trickling waters, that they are valid. There was an incident in Baras HaPilah that the incident was brought before the sages, and they ruled the mingled water fit. Okay, on to Basababra. Hey. One who sells the head of a large animal has not sold the legs. If he sold the legs, he has not sold the head. If he sold the trachea, he has not sold the liver. If he sold the liver, he has not sold the trachea. However, in case of a small animal, if he sold the head, he has sold the legs. If he sold the legs, he has not sold the head. If he sold the trachea, he has sold the liver. If he sold the liver, he has not sold the trachea. There are 4 rules for dealing with sales. If he sold him superior wheat and it was found to be inferior, the buyer can retract. If he sold him inferior wheat and it was found to be superior, the seller can retract. If he sold him inferior wheat and it was found to be inferior, there was superior wheat and it was found to be superior, neither can retract. If he sold him red wheat and it was found to be white, or white wheat and it was found to be red, he sold him olive wood and that it was found to be sycamore, or sycamore and it was found to be olive. If he sold him wine and was found to be vinegar, vinegar and it was found to be wine, both of them can retract. If one sold produce to another, if he drew it but he did not measure it, he has acquired it. If he has measured but did not draw it, he has not acquired it. If he is prudent, he rents its space. One who buys flax from another does not acquire it until he moves it from place to place. If it was attached to the ground and detached any amount, he has acquired it. Okay. Yevamos. The commandment of Chalitza is performed as follows. He and his Yevama come to the court and they give him advice appropriate to him, and as is said, and the elders of the city shall summon him and speak to him. She then says, my husband, his brother, refuses to establish a name for his brother in Israel. He is not willing to take me and Yubam, and he says, I do not want to take her. Then they said this in the holy language. Then his brother's wife shall approach him in the presence of the elders, remove his shoe from his foot, and spit before him, spittle discernible to the judges. And she shall declare, saying, so should be done to the man who would not build his brother's house. They used to dictate only until this point, but when Rabbi Harkanos dictated under the Elah tree in the village of Etam and completed the entire chapter, it became the established custom to complete the entire chapter. And his name shall be called in Israel the house of one whose shoe was removed. The commandment is incumbent on the judges and not on the disciples. And Rabbi Yehuda says the commandment is incumbent upon all those standing there to say, the one whose shoe was removed, the one whose shoe was removed, the one whose shoe was removed. Beis Shammai said only those who are betrothed may refuse, but Beis Hillel said both those who are betrothed and those who are unmarried may refuse. Beis Shammai said only the husband may be refused, but not the Yavam. While Beis Hillel says both the husband and the Yavam may be refused. Beis Shammai said refusal may only be made in the presence, but Beis Hillel says may be made whether in the presence or not. Beis Shammai says only in the court, but Beis Hillel says whether in the court or out of court. Beis Hillel said to Beis Shammai she may refuse while a minor, but even 4 or 5 times. Beis Shammai said the daughters of Israel not to be treated as promiscuous. Rather, she may refuse and wait until adulthood, or refuse and marry. Who is the minor wife who must refuse? Anyone whose mother or brothers gave her in marriage with her consent, and they gave her in marriage without her consent, she does not need to refuse. Reb Hanina ben Tekignio says any child who is unable to guard her betrothal object need not refuse. And Reb Eliezer says the minor's act is void as if she had been seduced. A Yisrael's daughter married to a Kohen may not eat truma, and a Kohen's daughter married to a Yisrael may eat truma. Okay. We're on to this. Okay. Well, all right.
Yes.
Why did they say, and why did they say these three countries? So they may eat in each one until the last one it is gone. Reb Shimon says it spoke of 3 countries only concerning Judea. but the other countries are like the king's mountains, and all the countries are as one as regard to olives and dates. One may eat on account of hefker, but not if guarded. Rabbi Yossi also if guarded. One may eat on account of vetching and on account of dufra, but not on account of autumn grapes. Rabbi Yehuda admits if they are ripened before the end of the summer. If one preserved 3 vegetables in one jar, Rabbi Eliezer says one may eat on account of the first. Rabbi Yeshua says on account of the last. Rabbi Gamliel says if a species is ended in the field, the species must be eliminated from the jar, and the halakha follows him. Rabbi Shimon says all vegetables are as one in regard to beer, and one may eat portulak until vetches have ended in the valley of the Tofa. And we have Caleb. If a patch was sewn into a basket, it contaminates one and invalidates one. If one then separated from the basket contaminates one and invalidates one, but the patch becomes tahor. If it was sewn onto a cloth, it contaminates 2 and invalidates one. And if he then separated from the cloth contaminates one and invalidates one, but the patch contaminates 2 and invalidates one. The same applies if it was sewed or patched onto a sack or onto leather. These are the words of Meir. Rabbi Shimon rules that it is tahor. And Rabbi Yossi says if he sewed the patch onto leather, it is tahor. Onto sack, it is tamei since it's woven. The minimum measure of 3 by 3 finger breadths that the rabbi stated regarding cloth is for cloth without the hem. These are the words of Rabbi Shimon, but the sages say the minimum measure is precisely 3 by 3 finger breadths. And if a patch was sewn onto a garment on one side, but it is not considered attached. On 2 sides, one opposite the other, is considered attached. If one was sewed onto the garment in the shape of the Greek letter gamma, Akiva rules that it's tummy, and the sages rule that it is tahor. Rehuda said, when are these things said with regard to a cloak? With regard to a shirt, it is sewn at the top, and it is considered attached, but at the bottom, it is not considered attached.
One more.
Okay, one more. Concerning clothing of 4 people, although they do not measure 3 finger breadths by 3 finger breadths, they can become tummy with midras tuma. Regarding a cloak that one began to tear, once a majority of the cloak is torn, the torn parts are no longer considered to be attached. Thick cloths and soft cloths are not subject to the law of 3 finger breadths by 3 finger breadths. And that's that. Okay, good.
Okay, and I gotta run.
Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.
Cheers.
Goodbye.